Welcome back to Chop Talk Sports. My name is Dean Frank. I'm here with my co-host Oscar Gonzalez Moore. And man, what a weekend of NFL football. The divisional weekend of football just wrapped up, and we wanted to give our fresh thoughts. It's the Monday, the day after of the craziness. I know definitely not what I was expecting to go down. I think I was 1-3 on the weekend, and Oscar had a different run of his own. I'll let him talk about that. But yeah, I guess, first just big takeaways before we get into every game.
Yeah, I mean, what an exciting round of divisional playoffs in the NFL. I thought this was way better than the wild card round. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the college football playoffs this year. Like the first round, all the teams that were favored to win won in a big score deficit. That being said, and that was kind of the same trajectory um, of the wild card round. But now that we're getting into the divisional, we saw some upsets that I'm really excited to talk about. Like you said, you are now winning the race to run a milk mile. So we'll also get into that, tally up our scores throughout the playoffs. And yeah, it was definitely a great weekend of sitting on the couch and just soaking in some football.
We weren't actually serious about that milk mile, were we?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can do that to Chop Talk if you want to, and
Nah,
just disregard the fan base.
man of my word. But yeah, you said it best. I mean, we that is literally what we did all weekend. Game Saturday and Sunday. I mean, it's negative degrees out here, snowing in Boulder, so nothing better to do than just watch football with the boys. So let's start it off. The first game of the weekend was none other than Mr. Patrick Playoff Mahomes, and the Chiefs beating the Texans 23-14. And the Chiefs, what was there ever a doubt? They move on once again. I think Mahomes is now 7-0 in the divisional round, and this team just does not know how to lose. We can talk about. There's a lot to talk about here. First, I don't know where we want to go first. Do we want to give credit to the Chiefs, or do we want to kind of go the hater route?
Whatever you want to do, my man. You take it away, and I'll punch back with
We go.
whatever you said.
All right. We'll talk. I guess the biggest star of the game had to be Kelsey, and this was something I think I spoke on last week when we previewed this game. It's just Travis Kelsey always finds a way in these playoff games. I think he's had the most over 100-yard games in the playoffs, or at least one or two, and it just seems like in the moment he's always there. He's always getting open. He's always that little quick slant route into the center, and then he like stops and breaks. He does the same thing every time. 117 yards and a touchdown. And it's just hard because there's so many people that are hating on him and doubting on the Chiefs, and they always find a way. I want to talk quickly about, all these play calls and, maybe the missed calls and the Mahomes flopping to get the penalties. And look, I do kind of I understand it now. As someone who hasn't always been a Chiefs hater, just I don't know. I like watching greatness. I like watching teams win, and the Chiefs has been a dynasty these past couple of years. But to me, it did look like the refs were calling him something. And I asked the boys. I don't know if you were here at the moment, but what I'm wondering is Mahomes getting these calls because he is a 3-time Super Bowl champ, a multiple MVP, or is he getting the calls because he's like flopping?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. The calls you see and the calls that should be called, I think that's the biggest surprise to me. There are obvious holds or other penalties that aren't being called in the Chiefs' favor. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, the flags they throw for Mahomes, you can see it. You know what I mean? That's like, you can always see how it could be a penalty, but it sucks so much more, in my opinion, when they don't throw the flag, man. Like, that was an obvious freaking penalty and they don't call it. So I would say it's more, yeah, you could debate he's getting the calls because he's a perennial Super Bowl winner, and he's Patrick Mahomes. But I think it's more about what they're not calling, because it's been some crazy. That's way more frustrating to me as a Chiefs hater and as a viewer of football. Regardless of where you stand, it's just like,
Right.
that's such an obvious call. What are we doing? And then you have some, Fairbairn missed some kicks. You got the Kansas City Chief voodoo magic going on.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't want to talk about it. Chiefs won, whatever. Yeah, Kelsey went off. My touchdown parlay hit. Shout out Hunt. Shout out Kelsey. But yeah, and shout out Caitlin Clark too. Hey, baller in the building next to T Swift. That was interesting to see. I don't know how they're friends, but that's cool. That's cool.
No, it's so funny. Like all the our roommates and everyone we were watching with is just like, oh, not again. Just like looking at Taylor Swift. It's like, come on, bro. Just I don't know. Who cares anymore? There's no reason to just be hitting on it. But yeah, before we end off talking about the Chiefs, I just think either way you look at it, right? You're a Chiefs hater, you're a Chiefs fan. I think we have to agree that the Chiefs are just the best at taking advantage of what's given to them. Like they're always like you can't make a mistake against the Chiefs and expect to win. You got to play a perfect game. So that's kind of just what we've figured out with Mahomes. I mean, he doesn't even have to have the best MVP type of caliber season or game. I mean, he's not even a pro. He's not even in the Pro Bowl this year, but the Chiefs were 15-1 with him. And, they're on their way to another AFC championship, whether you like it or not. So as crazy as it sounds, like we thought this Ravens-Bills game was the game of the year. Now we got the Bills and the Chiefs, which we'll talk about in this upcoming week. But I'm just excited because the spread's opening up again. It's like a 1-point game. Who knows what's going to happen? All I'm going to say is I'm glad I had the Chiefs future, and you can't really bet against the Chiefs anymore. So, whether you got to just join them at this point. So, and additionally for the Texans, we got to talk about them real quick. I mean, they only had one touchdown, but it in a year that it felt like Stroud kind of fell off a bit just because of how great of a rookie season he had. I think that the Texans are definitely trending to, be competitive for the next couple of years. I mean, Tank Dell and Diggs were both hurt. I think the Texans, like to be the best, you got to beat the best. They couldn't do it this year, but I think the Texans are rising. I like their defense a lot. Will Anderson is a dog. Al-Shaair, like I like this Texans team. I just, wasn't their year. That's kind of the way we were looking at it back here.
Yeah. It was definitely an impressive wild card round. I don't even think people were expecting them to win at home. Right. And going out to the Chiefs is not predictable, but also not a bad way to go out when you're considering you have a second-year quarterback who's kind of been fluctuating year to year. He honestly played pretty well against the Chiefs, from my knowledge. Yeah, I mean, like better than he'd been playing during the regular season. 245 yards through the air, a couple rushing yards as well. Like, there's only so much you can do. You pretty much have to play a perfect game to even have a chance to beat the Chiefs. And even then, it's up to some fate and luck, like a coin toss. But yeah, I mean, not mad about how they played. They got a lot of pieces. They got a lot of moves to make in the offseason. Stephon Diggs is a free agent. Nico Collins coming back from injury. So it'll be interesting to see what D'Amico Ryans does with this team. But I like the future as well.
Sweet. And now as we move on to the second game Saturday, and this game was the only game that wasn't close. And I mean, it's the biggest surprise. It's the biggest upset there was. The Commanders beat the Lions 45-31 by 2 touchdowns. Oh my God, it's nuts. I mean, red hot Jaden Daniels maybe having the best rookie season ever. Like, I don't think this has been done before. And if he could, I mean, he already got by the number 1 seed in the NFC away. So at this point, it's just like, I feel like a lot of football fans out there are rooting for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's just a baller. I think he's just fun to watch. It's one of those teams where it's like kind of the exact opposite of someone like the Chiefs, who just kind of like win like a very system, like just do every small things right. Like the Commanders are winning and they're flashy, and I think they're hot right now. And I mean, I'm going to be the first to say it. I was not expecting this. I had the Lions going to the Super Bowl. I guess it comes down to turnovers. Goff had a couple Goff had an interception. Jameson Williams had an interception. It just seemed like the Lions were kind of doing a little too much. I think they should have just kept running with Gibbs and like just playing the system. But I think it was that second quarter, the Commanders just kept scoring. And just from then on, the Commanders had 28 in the second quarter. Jesus. I mean, if you bet the over, you were happy. And it's at 76 at the end of the game. This was just a great game of football. And I don't know, it's just one of those upset games that like we're gonna look back on and be like, wow, like Jaden Daniels did it. There's not much you could say about the Lions other than they couldn't win in the big stage. I mean, I don't think I saw like Dan Campbell was like crying in the press conference and all that. I mean, it's tough to blame him for like the way he was able to just turn around the Lions past couple of years and like have them be contenders. But at the end of the day, you got to win in the playoffs. So, got to give the respect to Jaden Daniels. And I'm happy for all those Commander fans out there. It's probably been, I know it was a decade since being in the playoffs, and then probably, I don't even know what the exact statistic is, maybe 30 years since being in the AFC champion or NFC championship game. And another stat that I saw was funny is just like every team has been in a championship game, I think, other than the Cowboys in like the past however long it's been. So it's just funny, like the Cowboys just finding a stray out there. But yeah, we got two divisional teams now, Eagles against the Commanders. And I mean, I'm just the first to say it. I was not expecting the Lions to lose. So as a football fan, I mean, I guess you got to love an upset, right? Unless you're losing a lot of money on that, which we lost some money. We tried to bet the live money line, which didn't hit, but you win some, you lose some.
Yeah. One of my favorite memes this week is after the last game of the regular season, Dan Campbell went up to Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, and was like, "I'll see you next week." And like now the headline's like, "We didn't know they were talking about Cancun." But yeah, man, what a bummer. Like, I hate to say it, but like typical Lions fashion, right? I mean, the Lions have just always been a terrible organization, notoriously known for just like winless seasons, you know what I mean? But like, of course, they lose in the first game of the playoffs. I mean, like, I don't think anybody saw it coming, but like, I think the main takeaway for me is Jared Goff is not that guy. And as a Niners fan, I've seen a lot of guys in the system that thrive, you know what I mean? But good is not good enough for the playoffs, if that makes sense. Like, you have to be perfect, like we were just talking about. And he was not. He had a lot of questionable throws, 3 interceptions, threw the ball 40 times. I totally agree with you. Just give it to Gibbs, you know what I mean? And they have Ben Johnson, or they did. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think they could have easily won this game. But this is what happens when you kind of have an radical team like the Detroit Lions. They like to try a lot of things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And you just got to be more careful taking care of the ball, especially when you're going against a quarterback of the caliber of Jaden Daniels, who I don't think anybody would thought he'd be this good at this moment in time. But it seems like he's just getting better every playoff game, which is scary. But we are in for a treat for the NFC Championship. That is for sure.
It's awesome. I love how with like this is something that the NFL, I feel like it's a lot different with the NBA, whereas bad teams can be good the next year. The Commanders had 4 wins last season. I mean, they like when have we ever been talking about the Commanders like, in the playoffs? It's been a minute. It's been like before our time. So I think
I've never said that sentence in my life.
Exactly. Like it feels weird to even say. So I think it's just cool. Like Jaden Daniels takes over, won the Heisman last year, comes in second pick, and it's probably so tough to be a Bears fan too. Oh my god! But yeah, it's cool to see these teams kind of just turn it around, and with the Texans as well. It's very cool. So I guess I'm rooting for the Commanders now because definitely do not want the Eagles to win. So big. I guess the Commanders are getting some new fans here. All right, let's keep it moving. We had Sunday. Talking about the Eagles, oh man, my Rams lost to the Eagles 22-28. It was a snow battle. I mean, I'm not going to give any excuses. It's just the Rams are not built for the snow. I mean, I guess maybe Stafford is coming from the Lions, but when you play all season long, like in SoCal, and then the home field advantage got to have something to do with it because Stafford was looking pretty sloppy until I guess like the last couple of drives, and it was just a Saquon Barkley masterpiece. I mean, the Rams have no clue how to stop him. I think let me say it again. Saquon has only played 2 games against the Rams this season, and he has like over 400 rushing yards, which is insane. So this game he had 26 carries, 205 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He broke like 2 huge gaps for big touchdowns. And, just seeing that down the wire to I pretty much finished the game off. It was tough. I mean, the Rams had a chance. They got close. And I think just the weather and everything, it was just wasn't enough. But excuses are there. Stafford had a fumble. I guess, our receivers couldn't get going, and there's just nothing really to say. I guess the Eagles were better coached. I don't know. What do you think about this? I guess coming from a outside bias perspective.
Yeah, I think the weather had a lot to play with the outcome of this game. That being said, it wasn't necessarily one-sided. I do remember AJ Brown dropping like a crazy ball inside like the 10-yard line. So I would definitely say the snow affected both teams, but did it affect the Rams more? Maybe. Yeah, it was definitely unfortunate. I feel like the game was called like prematurely. The Eagles went up 13 points. Yeah, that sounds about right. And we just in the fourth quarter, and we thought the game was over, but the Rams did put up a valiant fight. And it's weird to think about, maybe if they're maybe if they're playing in Los Angeles or in a dome, this doesn't happen. There's a different outcome to the game, but that's football. You know what I mean? That's what you get for being the number 2 seed in the NFC. You get home field advantage versus the Rams. They had a kind of shaky season in the beginning, and, even though they were trending up, this is not inevitably what happens, but there's a chance that this happens, and it did. And Stafford, he didn't play great. He didn't play terrible. It'll be interesting to see what his future looks like with the Rams. I think they got really good skill position players. Like Kyron ran for over 100. Puka almost had 100 receiving. But at the end of the day, man, Saquon Barkley, like, what are you gonna do, man, in the snow? That guy's just a menace. So it's a tough result for Rams fans. I think we can at least both root for the Commanders now in the divisional, because I don't really want to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl again either. But hey, we'll see what happens. Should be a good matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you said it great. Stafford, he didn't have Stafford threw for 324 and 2 touchdowns. He had the fumble, yes, but then you look at Jalen Hurts, who threw for 128 in the air and no touchdowns. Yes, he had 70 rushing yards and a touchdown, but when you got Saquon Barkley, it's crazy the difference that you can make, because think about it. Him being on the Giants last year, like, sure, maybe, he's had a better statistic yard this year, but like, he's always been that guy. But when you're on the team like the Giants, like, a running back isn't really going to like push you forward to be a contending team, and just that finishing. I feel like a running back is like the final puzzle piece that you need for a team that already has a great system, already has, the Eagles have a great O-line and everything. So the Saquon is just, I hope if they win it, he wins MVP, because he deserves it. And I guess we'll just move on from that. Sweet. And then the game of the year, what was supposed to be the game of the year, and honestly, it was a great game, because the line at the start of the game was like 1 point and it finished at 2. So couldn't have scripted it any better. Bills versus the Ravens. Bills end up winning 27-25. Does that mean Josh Allen is a better quarterback? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. To say Lamar had a great game would kind of be a stretch. Like, we've seen him have much better games, and he had an interception. He hit an interception and a fumble, which actually was the first time this season he had more than 1 turnover. So I guess he pretty much had the worst game of the season. That sounds kind of weird, but in the playoffs, it's like you got to play to your best ability, and he didn't do so. We've seen him play better. Whereas, wow, Josh Allen didn't play as much better either. He had 127 in the air. He had 20 rushing yards. This was just a systematic type of game in the snow. I'm kind of surprised looking at the statistics, because I thought Josh Allen had a better type of day. But what happened? How did this happen?
Yeah, I really, you got to give credit to the Bills defense. Holding the Baltimore Ravens to 10 points in the first half is something we've rarely seen this season, and historically during the Harbaugh Jackson era. I think they played phenomenal. Like you said, a little bit of a fumble from Lamar, an early pick as well. It just was not going their way in the beginning. And not that, really came down to the Ravens' last drive and Mark Andrews caught that ball. Who knows? We would have a new team in the AFC Championship. That being said, you got to be perfect. You got to be perfect. I hate to keep reiterating it, but I mean, the Bills played like the Bills, and we knew home field advantage was going to have something to do with this, but they have that identity. You know what I mean? They're big bruisers. Like, I don't really know what Baltimore's identity is. Like, they are a bunch of like they're tough. You know what I mean? But like, Buffalo is a city that is taken for granted a lot. I feel like these guys have had something to prove like this entire season. Josh Allen with no help, and he did it. He got over this hump, which is an important one, but he's got a much more important one to get over next week. That being said, can't give enough credit to the Buffalo Bills defense. Josh Allen's still Josh Allen. I mean, the dude ran for 2 touchdowns. He's like the quarterback of Saquon Barkley's, or the Saquon Barkley of quarterbacks. And yeah, I mean, at the end, they played very well defensively and still put up 27 points, which I think is a great performance by the Bills around overall.
Yeah, you go back to how much home field advantage actually matters when it comes down to it, because it is tough to win a game at Bills Mafia while the snow is coming down. Like, this is what they all live for. So it was going to be a hard fought battle, and it's just I kind of feel for Lamar because I love him as a quarterback, but it's just like you got to win in the playoffs. I mean, I guess he could potentially have 3 MVPs at this point, so it's just like to have those and not have like any Super Bowls to like back that up or even be in a Super Bowl, it's a big deal. I guess we're going to just have to see if Josh Allen could beat Mahomes, because then it wouldn't be that big of a difference, but it'll be interesting when we look at the MVP. I mean, I know it's a regular season game, but like it's a regular season award. So I don't think this game would like have anything to do with it. But at this point, I would be kind of surprised if Lamar wins it now, even though he had better regular season stats. It's just like, it's kind of like how the cookie crumbles, But yeah, I know you got a big business call in a bit. I think we definitely have to talk and do some more research going into the championship round, because man, I'm just excited. We don't really know what's going to happen. I think the whole world, other than Chiefs and Philly fans, are rooting for the opposite teams, because no one really wants to see the Chiefs and Eagles again. But if it happens, so be it. I'm still going to be betting. I'm still going to be watching. So either way, super fun divisional round. I love football, and I'm honestly sad it's about to be over. We got the college football natty 2 coming up tonight,
right?
Which we haven't even covered at all. But I feel like it's Ohio State's to lose. I mean, they're just the powerhouse there, so I'd be very surprised if they lost. But yeah, any closing thoughts?
No, very entertaining weekend of football. Yeah, it's weird. This is like the most. I mean, last year I was like abroad, just following the Niners, like barely getting these W's, and then tragic L to the Chiefs. But I've been enjoying the NFL a lot. This is a conversation for another time, but I don't know what it is. I just enjoy the football games a lot more than the professional basketball games these days. But yeah, they're good stuff. Good stuff, script writers. I enjoyed this weekend of football.
Yep, we appreciate y'all. If you're still listening, for real, means a lot to us. Comment below any thoughts and just any big takeaways from this week, because we had a couple pretty big upsets. So I'm excited to keep reviewing for next week. And yeah, that's us. Peace and out for Chop Talk. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Peace, y'all.